Hey everybody, welcome back. And today I just wanted to do a quick review on the Pure Visionary palette. Now, you've probably seen the tutorial for this look go up. I probably will be posting this look first, but I wanted to just kind of touch base on the palette itself, give you some swatches, give you maybe some comparisons to some other things that you might have in your collection, to where you can see what it's similar to and what it is different from, and just some of my thoughts on the performance. So first off, it does come in a very sleek packaging, which I do really appreciate. It says Visionary right here and Pure, and on the back it does say 12-piece magnetic eyeshadow palette, net weight 0.07 ounces or 2 grams each. So you're getting quite a bit of product in here. So this is Pure Minerals, and Pure Minerals is cruelty free, and this does have a 6-month shelf life on it. So not a very long shelf life at all. So when you open it up, it does come with a little plastic cover, which I very promptly destroyed. And it does have that nice kind of texture on the palette, but this is very easy to wipe off and keep clean, which I do appreciate. I know a lot of people, I don't really necessarily care, but I do know a lot of people really care about keeping their makeup clean. So this is something that is very easy to wipe off, but it's still very appealing with the white packaging. So you open it up and it has a mirror in it, which again, mine is already dirty, and it says visionaries create what others only dream, which I kind of like. And then you have the 12 shades in here. And what is really cool about this is all of these shades do just pop right out of the palette. So you can pop other things in here. You could pop these out and put them in a Z palette. I think that's very, very cool, very convenient. So you do have a mix of finishes in here. I would say the top 4 are foiled shades. Then you do have 4 more traditional, I would say, shimmer shades to satin finish shades. And then you do have 4 mattes in here, mattes to a very satin finish. So you get a nice mix in here. Now, I know the first thing people are going to look at this palette and see, there's no, if you're fair skinned like I am, there is no black in here, and there is no all over eyelid color. For me, that is not a problem. I popped out my Naked Basics for this look today. That is not a must-have for me in every single palette, because how often do you use up a black? Especially, I can see a lid shade you using up, but how often do you use the black? You know, if you really are one of those people that, if that's something that you're concerned with, I always suggest to people, go buy Brulee and Panther from Wet n Wild. They're 99-cent eyeshadows, and they're fantastic, and you can pair them with absolutely any palette, and then you have pretty much all the shades that you need. Or if you don't want to do that, you could pop a couple of shades out of here that you don't use. I mean, I know you wouldn't necessarily need all of these foiled shades in particular. You know, if you're going on a weekend trip, you could pop in a lid shade or a black shade. If you have Makeup Geek or MAC or whatever it is you may have, ColourPop, you can pop it in here, and you do have that option because the palette is magnetized and you can customize it, which I think is fantastic. Now, I do really like the layout of this palette. I love the color scheme. These are very appealing to me. These are just colors that I really enjoy. I have created several looks with this palette, from very wearable look that I wore to work to something a little bit more intense like I'm wearing right now. So I think there's a lot of versatility with this palette. Overall, I've got to say, I really enjoy, in my experience, I enjoy Pure's matte shadows and satin shadows. I think they blend out beautifully. I don't think they're absolutely the easiest shades to blend out, but I would say they're mid to high range on the blendability scale. I would say that some of these foiled shades are a little bit more difficult to work with, and that would be my caveat with this palette. I think it's a gorgeous palette. Visually, it's a beautiful palette to look at, but I think if you are interested in purchasing this palette, you really need to think about how you like to apply your shadows and how much effort you like to put in, because some of these foiled shadows are going to need a little bit of effort. So, and what I mean by that is that when I do the swatches, you're going to see that they swatch beautifully. So if you apply them with your finger, they're going to swatch out beautifully. If you apply them with a brush, they need a little bit more work, but you definitely have to foil them. I foiled this color today, Dreamer, and they're a really interesting formula, especially these up here. They're very creamy and they hang together really well, except for this Dreamer shade right here. And I think I mentioned it in my tutorial. There's a lot of kick up in this palette. I'm already getting kind of a dent in there, so I have to be really gentle when I use it, but there's a lot of kickback with it. It can get a little flaky unless well, it can get a lot flaky unless you apply it with your finger or with a foiled brush. And my favorite way, I always do this in my tutorials, I like to go and pick up product with a dry brush and then spray it down and foil it. That way I just feel like it preserves the integrity of the shadow a little bit better. So that's my method. But you can see, let me show you, sorry, forgive the dirty mirror, but you can see that there is quite a bit of kick up and fallout with that Dreamer shade. So just be aware that that one is going to be a little bit more high maintenance, but otherwise they are beautiful. They do transition to the lid really well. I find that Icon is really the only one that really doesn't transition as beautifully to the lid as it looks in swatches, but you can make it work. Again, it's just one of those more high maintenance shadows. So these two right here, these are the two shades drawing you to this palette, just know that you're gonna have to work with them in my experience. So just be aware. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and swatch these for you, and I'll just do live swatches a la Tara Babies. I love the way she does swatches. So you can see how they swatch out and see what they look like. And then I'm gonna get into some comparisons of some palettes that maybe you have in your collection that are similar to this, or maybe that to show you the differences in the palettes if this is something that you're interested in. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with this top row. So this shade is called Leader, which is a beautiful bronzy gold. Then we've got Dreamer, which is a beautiful kind of warm tone golden champagne. Then we have a Girl Boss, which is a beautiful, they're all beautiful, I'm sorry, which is a like light pinky champagne, and Innovator, which is a more of a true gold. And I do just want to show you these up close. And I do want to show you these up close so you can see kind of the chunkiness in the actual colors. So it is there, so they're not perfect. I find that out of all of these, that Leader is the best performing out of all of them as far as chunkiness. So that's Leader, that's Dreamer. This one is Girl Boss, which definitely has some chunkiness to it, and then Innovator. So I don't know if you can tell, but there is a little bit of chunkiness with Dreamer and Girl Boss. Innovator and Leader are definitely a little bit better, but they are beautiful, extremely reflective and metallic. But just know that you're gonna have to put a little bit more effort into those, a little bit more of a high maintenance shadow. So the next row that you have is probably my favorite out of the whole palette. You have Optimist, which is a beautiful shimmer shade. It comes off more as a satin on the eye. And then you have Rebel, which is a beautiful matte. This is my favorite shade in the entire palette. Icon, which is a beautiful warm pinky shimmer shade. And then you have Role Model, which is a beautiful transition color. It's a beautiful, they're all beautiful, Heather. Oh, get your life together. This one's like a dusty rose with a little bit of mauve undertone to it. So this one's Optimist. So you can see that one is a little bit patchy, but it's beautiful on the eye. Rebel is absolutely gorgeous. It blends out so well. Then you have Icon, right? Icon. Now again, this one I feel like you really have to build up on the eye. Once you build it up, it's beautiful, but you are gonna have to work with it. I think it would behoove you to use a white base or a pinky base with that one. And then Role Model, again, is beautiful. That's what I have in my transition today. All right, then we have the last row, which is the most neutral row out of all of them. So we have Tycoon, which is I would call this like a satin finish. It's like a matte bordering on a satin finish. We have CEO, which is a beautiful shimmer. I would say it is almost, I would say it's closer to Leader than it is to Dreamer or Girl Boss. Is more metallic than Optimist or Icon. So it's kind of a nice right in the middle formula. We have Idealist, which is again another matte bordering on a satin finish. And then we have Pioneer, which is gonna be a little bit more chunky. It's not gonna be as chunky as Dreamer and Girl Boss, but the chunk is there. Let's put it that way. So this one is Tycoon, beautiful matte shade. This is CEO, gorgeous reflective shade. This is like the perfect formula. This is perfect because it's just as metallic as Leader. I would say these two are just the prettiest shimmers, but not chunky at all. Really gorgeous. Then we have Idealist, which you are not going to be able to see on me probably. It's like a peachy or a little bit peachier than my skin tone, but very light, beautiful as an initial transition shade. And then the last one is Pioneer, which does have quite a bit of flakiness to it. But again, I find that it works relatively well. I would say it's about on par with Icon, to give you just a frame of reference. So what I have on my eyes today, I started off by using Walk of Shame in the Naked Basics palette. I went in with this as my initial transition shade. I went in with Role Model, so I went in, what was that, Idealist as my initial transition shade. I deepened it up with Role Model. Then I went in with Rebel to really deepen it up. Rebel is along my lower lash line, and that is blended out with Role Model. And then I used Optimist on the outer third of my eye. I used Dreamer on the inner third of my eye to do this kind of half cut crease kind of look. I'm learning how to do it. Don't judge me, guys. And then I used Icon in the middle to kind of transition and blend them together. So overall, I really like this palette. This is not a palette I would grab when I want to do a quick look, unless I am just using this shade, unless I'm using Idealist, Role Model, and Rebel. Those would be the only, or Tycoon. I would use Tycoon too. So if I'm just doing a quick like matte shade or matte look, I would definitely grab this palette. But if I intend to use these more foiled shades, I would definitely use them for more of a special occasion, just for fun when I know I have time to do it. It's not going to be a quick grab and go palette. Hey guys, I just wanted to awkwardly jump in on my own tutorial. Obviously this is a different day, please do not judge. I just got home from work and my makeup's been on for about 11 hours, but I just started editing this footage and I realized that I did not talk about wear time, which is idiot move on my part. However, I wanted to let you know that in my experience, the shadows last on me really well for about 10 hours, 10.5 hours. I do start to get a little bit of fading. Once I hit the 11-hour mark, 11 to 12, 12 and a half, it starts fading on me. But I did want to let you know that the wear time is really, really nice on these shadows, at least in my experience. Now keep in mind, I do have dry eyelids and I don't have a problem with eyeshadows fading. So if you are somebody with oily eyelids, or you do tend to have shadows fade on you quite a bit, I can't really speak to that. I can just speak as far as the wear time of shadows on my eyes. They wear really, really well, and I have minimal fading, and I think it's pretty acceptable to have some fading at 11 or 12.5 hours. So just wanted to jump in and share that with you. So overall, a beautiful palette. You can see I've got it dirty and it just wipes right off, which is nice. Overall, a beautiful palette. It is not perfect by any means, but I think it, for the price point, the amount of product you get, and the flexibility of these pans being magnetized, I think it's got a lot going for it. I don't think it's gonna be somebody's one and done everything palette, but I think if you like these types of colors, if you are thinking about like the Modern Renaissance or the Queen of Hearts palette or something like that, I think this is a great option. Now, I can't speak to the quality of the Queen of Hearts palette because I do not own that one, but that was the first palette I thought of when I saw this palette in the store. So just a couple of quick comparisons. A couple palettes that, you know, people kind of tend to lump these pinky, purpley palettes all in one group. So I just grabbed a couple just so you can see the differences. So I'm gonna not spill this. So this is the Naked 3 compared with this palette. As you can see, this is definitely more muted, more soft pink colors. This one's definitely more vibrant and more in your face. So if you have this one, I think they would be different enough to where you could definitely use them in different ways and incorporate them in different ways in your makeup routine. I also wanted to show the Lorac Pro 3. I don't think these are very similar at all, but I know sometimes when you think warm pinky tone palettes, this is what these palettes can kind of come to mind. So again, very dissimilar. This is definitely more of a neutral palette with this amethyst, which I think makes people think of it when they think of those kind of reddy, pinky tones. So definitely different enough to where you would be getting, you know, some unique looks out of this palette. Another Lorac palette that it made me think of is the LA Collection Venice, and this is the Venice Beach one. These are the little mini palettes that came out in last fall, I want to say, and this just made me think of it because of the more orangey purple shade. So if you have this palette, you probably don't need this palette. You are missing that bright purple and that bright pink, but for the most part, they're very similar. You could get very similar looks out of this palette, especially if you're somebody who does not really go for 15 eyeshadows and look like I do because I've got to be extra. So if you have this palette, you're going to be able to get the kind of same vibes out of this palette, in my opinion. And then I wanted to compare this to the Modern Renaissance palette because I think, again, there's a lot of similar colors in here. I think the Modern Renaissance leans more red and pinks and oranges, where this one, the Visionary palette, leans more purpley, pinks, and like champagne-y colors. I think this one is kind of the shimmery little sister to the Modern Renaissance, to whereas the Modern Renaissance, you only get, what, you get 2 shimmer shades and a matte that kind of has a little bit of shimmer in it. And in the Visionary palette, you're getting 8 shimmer shades. So if you like the idea of the Modern Renaissance, but it doesn't have enough shimmers for you, which I know that's usually not the case, but I know there are people out there that do like shimmers, I think this would be a great way to go. And then the last palette I wanted to compare it to that I think is probably the most similar is the Unzipped Desert Sunset palette. So just like this one, you're getting your bright purples, you're getting your bright pinks, you're getting some browns. I think this one is a more complete palette than this one. This Unzipped palette is not going to have the impact with the shimmers as much as this one is. These are definitely some foiled metallic shimmer shades that you are not going to get as intensely in this palette, but as far as the color scheme, they are very, very similar. If you are looking for something that is a more easy, kind of everyday appropriate complete palette, I would definitely go with the Unzipped. I think it is a great palette. It is my favorite out of the Unzipped palettes that came out last year. And I feel like you get all these beautiful bright pops of color without having to put in the extra effort. So if I had to choose between these two, I would definitely go with this one just on an everyday basis. All right, guys, so those are just some thoughts, pros and cons, and some comparisons on the Pure Visionary palette. Again, I think it's got a lot of things going for it, with the caveat that they're just not the easiest shadows to work with as far as the foils, which is what you're going to be buying this palette for, let's be real. And it's not going to be a complete palette that has everything you need for just easy everyday looks, unless you are just really simple and just going in with, you know, those 3 or 4 shades. So just keep that in mind. I hope this was helpful. I hope it was helpful seeing the swatches because it is a beautiful palette. Let me know if you intend on picking up this palette, or if you're interested, or if you're over the pinky Modern Renaissance purpley vibe. You know, it's just one of those things I love. I'll probably never get over, but I'm always interested to hear your thoughts. But thank you guys so much for hanging out and talking about makeup with me. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Have a rocking week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.